So here we are, the Schleg Daddy's playoff predictions for the 2014 NFL season. I can guarantee you I won't be 100% right, that is for sure. What I can say is I am relatively confident that a lot of what I foresee playing out actually will play out. And of course, I'm going out on a limb here, seeing as how the playoffs aren't for another 4 months, a lot of time to elapse, an entire regular season to happen. Any number of crazy off the wall things can and probably will happen. So if you want to come back to this video in a few months and make fun of me, so be it if I'm off the wall on a couple of things. If you do that, though, I ask that you give me your full playoff picks for the AFC, the NFC, and then Super Bowl 49. So that way you're not just making fun of me when you're not on the record yourselves with any of your picks. At least I'm going on record with what I think is going to happen, and I'm going to start off with the AFC. In the AFC, I have the following 6 teams making the playoffs. I've got New England as the number 1 seed, getting home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I've got Indianapolis as the 2 seed, getting a first-round bye. Denver as the AFC West champions with the 3 seed. Cincinnati with the 4 seed as AFC North champions. And then the 2 wildcard teams being the Baltimore Ravens with the 5 seed and San Diego the Chargers getting the 6th seed. In the wild card round, I've got San Diego facing Denver and Baltimore facing Cincinnati. So 2 divisional rivalry games, if you will. I've got the Broncos prevailing over the San Diego Chargers. I'm not picking the Broncos to go very far in the playoffs, but I do think they have enough to be able to handle business at home against the San Diego Chargers, just like they did last year in the divisional round. And finally, I have the Cincinnati Bengals winning a damn playoff game under Andy Dalton as their starting quarterback, with them being able to handle business, beating Joe Flacco and the Baltimore Ravens, which means you go on to the divisional round. I've got Cincinnati as the 4 seed, being the lower seed to advance. They will go to New England, who is the 1 seed. They've got home field advantage throughout. Then I've got Denver traveling to Indianapolis to take on Andrew Luck and the Colts. Could you imagine the media and fan feeding frenzy, for that one? Peyton Manning versus Andrew Luck in Indianapolis, the house that Peyton built, so to speak, that now Andrew Luck is the Lord and Savior of, if you will. In terms of the New England Patriots, I just think they would have too much for the Cincinnati Bengals. Ultimately in these type of matchups, a lot of the times you'll take the better quarterback, and am I going to take Andy Dalton or am I going to take Tom Brady? And when you look at guys like Revis and Browner at the corners and what I would assume to be a slightly improved set of skill players around Tom Brady, hopefully including a healthy Rob Gronkowski, I think they'd be able to handle business and swat away the Bengals in advance. And I'd expect the Indianapolis Colts to be able to handle business against the Denver Broncos. For all those that sit there and say this or that, the bottom line is it's an incredible accomplishment for the Denver Broncos, in theory, to even make the playoffs the year after losing the Super Bowl, because so often that Super Bowl hangover for the losers, they don't even make the playoffs. So the fact that I even have the Denver Broncos making the playoffs, winning their division, winning a playoff game, I think is an accomplishment. But this is a team that is not going to be as strong as last year. All the moves that they made in the offseason, they also lost some key pieces, and I don't think they improved as much as people anticipate. And I think the Colts, who beat them last year in the regular season, have the formula to be able to beat Peyton Manning and the Broncos in Indianapolis, which brings me to the AFC Championship game. You've got the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots. I know a lot of people are probably picking the New England Patriots on paper to make the Super Bowl, and this could be one of these instances like last year where you have like 2 prohibitive favorites, or at least in this case 1, where everybody pretty much assumes that the New England Patriots are going to be the best team and they're going to be the team to advance. But I'm not in that category, and I actually think that when all is said and done, the Indianapolis Colts would find a way to avenge last year's savage beating that they suffered in the divisional round at the hands of the Patriots, to go into Foxborough in the winter behind Andrew Luck, and I think they can actually beat the New England Patriots, therefore making the Indianapolis Colts my choice to represent the AFC in Super Bowl 49. Now let's look at the NFC. So here are my playoff teams in the NFC. I have the Philadelphia Eagles as the number 1 overall seed, getting home field advantage throughout the playoffs. I've got the San Francisco 49ers winning the NFC West and managing to find a way to get the number 2 seed and getting a first-round bye. I've got the Green Bay Packers winning the NFC North and getting a 3 seed. I've got the Atlanta Falcons winning the NFC South, getting a 4 seed. My 2 wild card teams, I have Seattle out of the NFC West as a 5 seed with 11 wins. And then I have New Orleans, the Saints, as the 6 seed, the last team in the playoffs in the wild card, barely beating out teams like the Detroit Lions and maybe the St. Louis Rams. In terms of going to the wild card round, I've got New Orleans as the 6 seed, traveling to Lambeau Field to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, and Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks traveling to Atlanta to play Matt Ryan and the Falcons. And looking at this, I think Green Bay was this close, frankly, to being able to beat San Francisco last year in the wild card round at home. And frankly, San Francisco, I think, is one of those teams that the Green Bay Packers just can't beat, in large part because they can't match up with Colin Kaepernick. Well, I don't think they necessarily have quite the same concerns, even though they'd be facing an all-time great potential quarterback that is in Drew Brees. But the Saints playing in cold weather in the winter, I don't like that for that team, and I think the Packers would have enough to be able to beat the Saints and move on. I also think the Seattle Seahawks, even though last year they had home field advantage throughout, they had the first round bye, and they needed that home field advantage. I don't know if they need that home field advantage necessarily this year. And for the Atlanta Falcons, this is a team that under all those playoff appearances with Matt Ryan managed to win 1 playoff game. Yes, it was against the Seattle Seahawks in 2012, but I think the Seattle Seahawks would be the better team, and they'd be able to find a way to go on the road and win and advance. Now we get to the divisional round. That means Green Bay as the 3 seed would travel to San Francisco, the 2 seed, and that means Seattle as the 5 seed, the wild card winner, the lowest seed remaining, would travel to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles, who have home field advantage throughout. In terms of Green Bay versus San Francisco, I think it boils down to very simply this. Sometimes you have those teams that you just can't beat. Sometimes you have those teams that get inside of your head. And I don't think the Green Bay Packers can beat the San Francisco 49ers. And I think, frankly, that it's the 49ers' year, even though some things in this offseason and in the preseason have pointed to that not being the case whatsoever. If there's ever going to be a time for the 49ers, it's right here, right now, and it's this season. And I think they'll have enough to be able to beat the Green Bay Packers in Santa Clara and move on to host the NFC Championship game against the Seattle Seahawks. I look at the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a team that I think is going to be able to coast in the regular season, playing in the NFC least, if you will. And I think they're going to, be able to get potentially that number 1 overall seed. But they have historically over the past couple of years really struggled to play well at home. And furthermore, you're talking about an experienced Seahawks team, a championship Seahawks team, a more balanced and more complete Seahawks team, and a Seahawks defense that, while it might not be as good, I don't think, as it was in 2013, will still be able to game plan effectively enough to be able to minimize the damage that Chip Kelly's Eagles offense can do. So I think it's going to be the Seahawks traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. And this is going to be one of those kind of revenge games, if you will, and ultimately you look at it, 2 very evenly matched teams, 2 teams that are incredibly familiar with themselves, and the 49ers, frankly, would be looking for revenge, looking to get back at the Seahawks for what happened in the NFC Championship game last season, which leads me to believe, with San Francisco having the home field advantage, I think Colin Kaepernick will press, he will progress, he will improve dramatically in his 4th season in the NFL. I expect the San Francisco 49ers to represent the NFC, in Super Bowl 49. Well, if Super Bowl 48 did nothing to show scouts and executives that the times have changed when it comes to the quarterback position in the National Football League, and that the days of the big immobile pocket passer may be passé, Super Bowl 49 would definitely do that, you would think, with Andrew Luck and his Indianapolis Colts facing off against Colin Kaepernick and his San Francisco 49ers. And I look at this matchup, you've got 2 young, impressive kind of dual threat quarterbacks, 2 future and present, frankly, stars of the entire National Football League, 2 of the faces of the league for potentially years to come. And look at this matchup, and while some may view Andrew Luck as the better quarterback because, frankly, he is, I think Colin Kaepernick has a better team around him. And ultimately, I'm going to pick the San Francisco 49ers to finally get it done this year after 3 straight years of making it to the NFC Championship game, losing a close one, a nail-biter in Super Bowl 47. I think the San Francisco 49ers will do just enough to finally figure out how to get over the hump and figure out a way to beat the Indianapolis Colts and win Super Bowl 49, making it a 2nd straight Super Bowl championship for the NFC West. Now, again, this is several months out, so I'm sure not everything is going to be right. Some of the key things I think I will be right on. But again, if you're going to come back to this video in a couple of months and make fun of me, so be it. But make sure if you do that you at least have the balls like I have to be able to give me your predictions ahead of time. So that way, if you're going to make fun of me for my picks, I have the ability to come back and make fun of you for your picks. Now, of course, if I'm mostly right on this stuff, you are more than welcome to come praise me, because God knows I'm never going to let you forget just how right I was.